Hello and welcome everyone to the Coding Imposters podcast, where we talk about breaking into the programming industry, coding, whatever you want to call it. Both of us here on the podcast have just recently graduated from a coding boot camp, so we're going to share our experience now before we've made it into the industry, how much it sucks, so that you can sympathize, empathize with us, follow along with us, whether you've been to boot camp, CS degree, trying to be self-taught. If you're just trying to get into the industry, we want to talk about it, also share other people's stories as well, whether they've already made it or they're still trying to make it. So this podcast is going to be way more focused towards the emotional side, trying to break through and feeling this coding imposter syndrome, hence the name. So if you're here for all of that, boring computer science stuff, O to the N square root stuff that I still don't understand, we're not probably going to teach you that because we're still trying to figure it out ourselves. But if you're here to empathize with us and join us in our experience, then welcome as well. So I'll kick it over to my co-host, Skylar. Thanks for being here. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. Yeah, we're just chilling, trying to figure out, like you said, just the freaking emotional side of things. Yeah, dude. It's tough out there.
It is tough out there. And maybe one day again, maybe when someone's listening to this podcast 3 to 5 years later and it's blown up and we've made it big time, maybe they're like, what are you guys talking about? The industry is so easy. I woke up and I wrote 5 lines of code for my first 5 lines and now I got a job. That's how they made it seem like 5 years ago. And now it's like, expect like a year till you get a job.
Well, that's what they made it seem like with the boot camp. They're like, you can't get a job without us. You must do this for 6 months. And then once you learn all the basics, because we're going to teach you the basics, then you'll get a job. And the lowest salary pay we'll see is $100,000. You're like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And then you graduate. They're all like, oh, so here's the secret. And you're like, what?
To be fair, I don't feel like, and I'm sure we'll have an episode focusing on boot camp and was it worth it, but I don't feel like anyone that was like actually in the boot camp told me that, but it's just kind of like the marketing, the ads you see, the narrative to sell you on it,
Yeah, all of them are like that. It's like everything you look up, they're like, here's our success rate, here's what they're making, here's where all our people are like working at Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and all the Google, all the big brands, right? So you're like, oh, sweet, that'd be dope, but I guess that's for the next episode.
Yeah. I mean, there are alumni there working at those companies, but they
That's
probably
true.
made it when it was a lot easier to jump in. So
Yeah, they graduated 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll get into all that. I think today's episode, we're going to focus on specifically the imposter syndrome, how we're working through it, how it feels. And I want to tackle the question of, is it actually worse for coding and programmers? Because you see that a lot posted. There's so many articles. So we'll jump into that in a little bit. But first, I want to get your 2 minute, no one listening to this podcast knows you. Maybe like 2 people know me from like my past streaming stuff that will come listen or something, but no one knows who you are.
No one knows me.
So give us your if you're on Tinder, but for programmers, like what's your 2 minute, tell us about how you got into coding so we can swipe left or right on you. I don't know.
You're like, give this man a job.
Yeah.
No, so my dad's a programmer for my whole life, and I was always trying to figure out what to do, where to go with my career, and tried hair school. So I became a barber, decided that barbering wasn't for me because it's boring and people suck.
Heck yeah. By the way, I needed another haircut soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. So I'm still licensed. Yeah. And just trying to figure out what do I want? I want to work from home, but I also want to get paid well, and I want to be able to enjoy what I do and try to, tackle the problems. And I'm always fixing things. That's my big thing. Like, there's an issue, I want to fix it. And coding, my dad was like, yo, coding is just always a problem. Like, it's never going to work 100%. It's always going to be like 70%.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, that sounds like something that would drive me crazy, but I would also love it. So I started looking into coding boot camp and coding school, and now we're out. And to kind of touch on the imposter syndrome thing, it's like when you're in school, you feel so confident because everyone else around you is at the same level.
Mhm.
And so you all kind of build each other up of this like, oh, I'm really smart. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. And then you jump out and you feel like you know stuff and you've learned like, oh, I don't know anything.
Right.
Like I have this certificate
Yeah.
that says I know stuff, but I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so is it worth
And you're applying to places that has like 20 different technologies listed. I'm like, I don't even know what like 10 of these technologies are.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it's like, and then they all want, you know, a year of experience, and they want at least a year of experience. They want like your PhD in computer science.
I have not seen PhD. You're selling a little too hard now.
I'm going a little hard. No, man, it's weird.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I would swipe right, left on you. I don't know.
I think it's right.
Okay.
If I close my eyes and think of muscle memory, I'm pretty sure it's right.
We're both married, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. This is just an analogy, you know.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, for me, I had this like weird interest in coding like way back when after I graduated high school. So, you know, I grew up gaming, all that. And I was never like, I don't know, I feel like when I grew up there wasn't a ton of resources. I'm sure I could have like found ways to learn programming, but it's not like, you know, back in like the early 2000s, it's not like it is today where you have so many free courses on YouTube and Udemy and whatever. But after high school, there was one thing, I don't remember what it was called now. It was a free course where you get to learn to build a search engine.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
So I went through that, and it was like a year after high school, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go apply for UW, go actually into computer science, all this. And then that's when my church reached out to me to do the youth internship and said I went for that path because I just liked working with youth so much. So it was one of those things where like, I was really into it for like this weird like 3 or 4 months. And then as soon as I got the job and like, I don't know, it's one of those things where you're like learning something else, like you're at school for something else. So you just kind of fall off for other hobbies or other interests. So
yeah,
I guess I just never touched it for about 10 years until you started talking about going into a coding bootcamp. I'm like, I do remember that. And my content job before this wasn't going as well as I wanted to. I was like, do I really want to be in content forever? Probably not. You know, it's probably not something I want to do when I'm 50. So maybe I should have another skill.
You'll be irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
I feel like you get like 30, 35 and
Right.
everyone's like the Toy Story meme. They're like, I don't want to play with you anymore.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Who's this creep that's like reviewing video games at age 60? This is like, I don't know. Maybe it'd be cute. Like, you know, there's like those streaming grandmas that everyone loves, but grandpas, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a market for it somewhere. You just have to make it
I
when you're
don't want
60.
to know what that market is.
Fair enough.
Anyways, I was doing self-teaching programming for a couple months there, you know, solo learn, YouTube tutorials, just, you know, CS, Harvard had their own like little course. But after a while, it came to the point where those tutorials are good, I feel like, to get you oriented to like have a little test to see if you like it. Like if anyone's trying to get into coding, I'd recommend doing that before jumping into, you know, signing up for a university or boot camp or anything. Like make sure you actually like it. But there comes to a point where you're like, I feel like I'm just copying and pasting code, so I'm not really learning it. Like, I built the thing that you're building on this YouTube tutorial, but you go tell me to build this in my own way in my own project. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
So-
where's that like learning piece, that connection where you can apply what you've learned
Right.
to build something that's unique, like uniquely yours, I guess.
Yeah. So, you know, I was building like text-based video games for fun, like just messing around with like classes and
remember
functions. I had like 2,500 lines of code in like one file because I didn't know how to like pass things from file to file, you know, like just stupid stuff like that. It was just a complete mess. But yeah, that's how you start, right?
Totally.
So, you know, watching you sign up for the boot camp, you dragged me into it. Anything that was negative about it, I blame you.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that I made you do anything.
I'm kidding. You
Jeez.
inspired me. I actually had a really good boot camp experience. So I know we're hitting on it, but I think it's more so like we feel unprepared for the job search. I don't have like there's obviously like we're going to talk about later. There's positives, there's negatives for sure. Not everything was 100% amazing about it, but overall I had genuinely a really good experience. So that's kind of where I'm at. Same thing that you're feeling. It's like, man, as soon as you jump outside of that boot camp where you're comparing yourself, you try not to compare yourself, but you're naturally going to compare yourself to your classmates.
Totally.
And for both of us, we were probably near the top of our classes. They're pretty big classes because they're just shoving everyone in online. There's probably, 40, 50, 60 people in them. And so we're probably top 5, top 10, whatever you want to say. It doesn't really matter, but
sure. Yeah.
I say that not to brag, but more just to
employers.
I'm saying that more to make the point that I think everyone has imposter syndrome. Like it doesn't matter how good you are, because once you step out of that educational spot, then you're comparing yourself, even though you're not supposed to. Like, you just see things online, you're comparing yourself to the application, like, am I good enough to even apply here, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And it's a whole new world, as you said.
It's exactly, yeah. I mean, even going to touch on like all the people in coding bootcamp, you get the grandpas who are like, I've always wanted to code, and so I'm retired. And did you have any like old guys in your class?
There was one in our programming basics, and then I don't know if he dropped out or just went to a different class, but he was probably 70 or something like that. I was like, good for you, man. Like, I was surprised, but I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, I had a couple of guys who were retired, and they were like, oh, I'm just bored and I want to do this boot camp because I always dreamed about coding, and they were always asking for help and stuff because they don't know how to open like a GIF or like a zip file or whatever. I mean,
I wish I was a place in life where I had just 10K to drop on something because I'm bored.
Right? I know. It's like, I would go travel the world or like take a cruise or something instead of putting myself through that.
Probably. That's fair.
No, it's interesting too, because it's like walking into the job force, you realize how competitive it actually is, right? And so you get this boot camp certificate and you're fighting with people with bachelors who have years of experience, and you're trying to figure out what makes you unique. And that's really difficult because I think you touched on it, a conversation we had a while back of like, I don't want to feel like a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You're like feeling like a piece of paper where it's like that's all they care about is just the size of your
size matters.
Yeah. Again, employers.
Yeah. I mean, no, totally. That's the thing that like demoralizes me the most is I know if I have an interview, like I can connect with people well. I can show off what I know. And I'm not like I'm so good at this, but like I can share like, okay, I know this. I know I need to know all this other stuff. Trust me. Like, I'm not coming to, like this, like I know everything, but just to, explain and show like, here's who I am. Here's like how good of a quick a learner I am. Here's like how I would want to grow. I just need someone to give me the opportunity and guide me through it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're just a piece of paper, you're like, well, all they care about is I have these kind of skills. I did like this project. They don't know you at all. Right. It's just, you're literally boiled down to that and decided if you're worth it or not.
Totally. And that's where like the LinkedIn algorithm and stuff comes into play where everyone's like, you need to post to LinkedIn all the time, and you need to show people your personality so that employers, when they see LinkedIn on a professional level, they're like, oh, we know what this person's into, what this person likes, or, what not. And like, for me, I don't like posting on social media at all. Like, I think the last post on my Instagram was like 2 or 3 years ago.
But you like podcasting.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite. That's all I do.
Dude, I'm the same way. I hate posting anything social for myself. But if it's like a brand or a content, like, I did a bunch of YouTube and streaming and Twitter and all that, but it wasn't for me personally. I don't know why, but for me personally, I just hate social media for myself, even though I worked in it. I feel like it's totally that, like, hey, look at me, look how amazing I am, and like you and I are both people who aren't like, we're like, I'll go sit in the corner, like there's a big party and I want to go find the couch with like the 2 people who just want to talk about D&D or something. I just want to be a programmer from remote and never leave my house. Yeah.
I know. I order a Uber Eats or like what the Amazon delivery for the groceries and stuff. Like, as long as I don't have to step outside, I'm happy.
There you go.
And posting on social media is like the ultimate, like, look at me, I'm amazing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, before we jump into the main topic, I do want to take a quick sidebar because I just want to have a little fun for you, for our viewers. And this is what gets the most TikTok views, let's be honest. It's not what we say. If we say anything meaningful, people just skip by. It doesn't matter. But trivia does well. So,
great.
I got some trivia for you. I didn't tell you that we're going to do this, partly so that I can make you look like a fool and make it seem like I'm smart because I'm the one asking the question.
Yeah, I'm going to fail all of these questions.
Okay.
Here we go.
So, listeners, follow along, see if you can get these right, because Skylar is going to get...
None of them.
No, there's only three.
Yeah.
Okay. First one. This is from gocoders.com. So, if they're wrong, it's not me, it's they're wrong.
Oh, okay.
So, how many coding languages there are? I'll give you multiple choice to make it easier.
Okay, sure.
A is 300.
Okay.
B, 700.
Okay.
C, 1500. Or D, 5000.
Whoa. I'm going to go with 1700. I feel like
it was 1500 or 700. Which one?
You gave me three op.
Yeah,
Wait.
B is 700, C is 1500. You said 1700. Did you mean 700? Or did you mean
sorry. 1500.
Okay.
See, I told you I was going to get it wrong.
You did get it wrong. It was 700.
Yeah.
700 languages. I don't know if they like include frameworks and stuff like that, or it's literally just programming languages, but that's what they said.
Now, does it ask you how many main languages there are, or is it just like
definitely not that many? No, it's just like a fun coding fact.
Love fun coding facts.
This is from Teach Your Kids to Code. Bill Gates. Do you know who Bill Gates is?
Oh no, who's Bill Gates?
He made Microsoft, in case you're wondering.
Whoa, he made Microsoft?
Yeah. What was his first computer software that he developed? I'll give you a few guesses.
Oh shoot. First computer software. I mean, obviously it wasn't Windows.
No, it was not Windows.
Dude, I don't know. Give me multiple choice again.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's somewhat a game. It's not like a video game.
Did he do Pong?
No. That was Atari.
It's a game?
Yep.
But not a video game?
Like a really simple game.
Minesweeper?
A game that you can play on a piece of paper.
What? Tic-tac-toe.
Yes, you got it.
That was his first?
Apparently, a tic-tac-toe program that allowed people to play games against the machine. So,
so
some
he was
AI.
the first. Yeah, he was the first AI.
I don't know if he's the first AI, but
that's true. He probably says it.
Okay, last one. We'll see how many guesses. I'll say if you're too low or too high. Each year, computer viruses negatively impact the global economy by how much dollars?
Oh, $1? Is it in the billions?
Take a guess.
1.2 billion.
Higher.
3.4 billion.
Much higher.
Much higher? 5 trillion.
Okay, well, not that high.
You said much higher.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're getting... No, I guess that's technically not closer.
Oh, okay. So, 500 billion.
Higher.
A trillion.
Higher.
What? So 10 trillion is too high. So 5 trillion. Where am I at? Like 10 guesses?
It's $1.5 trillion. So there you go. Maybe we should go into cybersecurity.
I mean, it's a big market.
That's hey, we'll save you guys $1 trillion. All we ask is for 500 billion. You know.
There you go. That's easy.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy when I saw that. I was like, "What? 1.5?
How do they calculate that number?
I don't know. Like, does it just like people report their losses and stuff or something?
So does it take into account like employee stealing, insider trading, or is that
they might just ask ChatGPT for that?
I mean, we all ask ChatGPT.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into the main question,
Okay.
which I've been thinking about a little bit. I don't know if you thinking about it. The question that we want to ask during this episode is imposter syndrome worse for programmers and coders? Is it worse than jumping into other industries, mechanic, acting, blah, 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 whatever? And I don't really have an answer yet. I want to say like off the cuff, just yes, because I'm in the midst of it. So of course it's going to feel worse.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is maybe like talk through like previous industries that we've jumped into. And obviously you've had a bit more than I have, but I can still talk through mine as well. And just maybe see if we can compare and contrast. Like, is there something special? Is there something different and unique about the imposter syndrome that programmers have to deal with?
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like any specialty that you try to get into, you're going to feel like imposter syndrome, obviously, right? It's almost like the less you know, the more you feel like you know, and the more you know, the less you feel like you know.
Right. Or
It's
the
something
classic,
like that.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I was trying to get into videography for a while, and the first like year I was like, dude, I'm really good at this. This is awesome. And then after the year, it slowly went downhill as I looked at like my past projects, and I was like, holy crap,
Right.
these are terrible. Like people paid me for this. And then you'd keep doing it and it just go downhill, downhill, downhill. And then I went into the hair school, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in school, same thing as like boot camp, you feel like you're really smart, right? Like they put me in like at my school, they had a special section for like the really good hairstylists, and they put me in that section.
You're like in a good corner, and there's like a bad corner of the
No, they're they're
Are you
totally.
serious?
Yeah, it's by the window. So like if you ever
Do
walk
they
by,
say that, or is it just
oh
like
yeah,
you
it's a
assume-
No, it's
Oh.
a competition. You
Damn,
have to
okay.
like the teachers all will promote you, and then you have to show that you can color correctly, you can cut
That's
correctly.
harsh, dude. What?
Oh yeah, it's
Oh my
crazy.
God.
It's this like, so if you go to buy a traditional barber shop, the guy in the window is going to be the best
Okay.
hair cutter,
Because
and the
everyone's
guy in
walking
the
by and like seeing how good they are.
exactly, yeah. So like you'll hear tricks of in the barbering world, at least. Like I always do one side of the head as best I can, and then turn them towards the window. So when you're walking by,
my
you're like, I
gosh.
want that guy.
So if
Is
if I ever go to a barber, I need to make sure I'm getting the guy by the window. That's the lesson. Like if you take anything away from this
Yeah.
podcast, that's it.
In a traditional sense. Now there are other exceptions,
Sure,
but
yeah.
usually the most senior barber is the closest to the door.
Right.
And even going into that, it's like I was a apprentice barber under one of a really good barber in my area, and he was really good at making me feel like I knew stuff, but also I was just constantly like, dude, I am not this good. Like, how the heck do I get this good?
Right.
You know? Attempting to contrast that from what I've tried to do to what's now. I think it is harder because the market is there's so many more people trying to get the job that we're trying to get than like a barber. You know, like it's super easy for me as a barber to go get a job, because how many barbers do you know personally?
Right.
You know, like I've been in that industry and I only know one barber personally.
Yeah.
Like that I call a friend. Like I worked with other barbers, but they weren't like personal connections. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you go in the coding world, I know like 5 or 6 guys who are actively coding and actively high up in their positions. And that's a crazy amount of people versus all of the jobs that, like, in my personal like circle, right? How many people have different jobs? And it's very few people have the same job that are not connected at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And I think something that sticks out to me that you said is something I've been thinking through too is, you know, you talked about how it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, because now
Yeah.
it's like, you know, you program your first little thing and you're like, oh, okay, I'm understanding this language. And then, you know, you learn more and you're like, okay, it's not just about knowing this language. I gotta know this framework and how to route stuff and how to connect files, you know, and make classes and functions and all these, you know, you start stacking on all these layers bit by bit. And then you realize, okay, there's so much still out there on deployment and all these just different other sections. And I think something that I think is somewhat unique to coding is just the world of technology is so large and it's so intimidating. And it's one of the things I struggle with is I want to go learn like all these different technologies because I see people working in them or I see them on an application, and it's so hard to just focus and say like, no, I'm going to work and be good at one thing, because you see the world and you're comparing yourself to everything on social media or others, and you're like, man, the amount of technology that there is that I could potentially go learn is overwhelming, which I don't know I got that as much as a youth pastor. Like, sure, there's different like types of theology I guess you could learn, but like overall, like you're learning about God. Like, you're learning about one subject, and there might be like more niche things, but it doesn't feel like super important, especially to like jumping into a job. Like, you just kind of you just go for like that one theology, that one track for the church that you're working for, which I guess you could do in coding, and it's what we should be doing, but it just feels overwhelming. I don't know if you feel that way as well, of how much there is out there.
Oh, totally. Well, and it's also, I feel like I'm missing out on some technology that I would love more than what I'm doing now. You know, like, I really like React. So I've been trying to, for the front end side, I've been trying to learn more React and get better at it. But I'm constantly like, should I look at a different framework or a different front end style because I'm missing out on the advancements in the technologies, right? Like, is Vue better? I don't know. I've not tried it yet, but I'm afraid to try and learn so much that I don't know. Like, I'm not good enough to then get hired. Like, so many people say, find one thing and get really good at it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh no, am I going to choose the wrong thing?
Right. The irrelevant thing. It's like code FOMO.
Totally.
I think one of the other things that was interesting for me to think through is, so after youth pastoring, I went into content. I started my own channel and then eventually got picked up by a company. And I think there's definitely moments where I felt imposter syndrome in a weird way of like, there are no rules. So like, there's not like one way to be a content creator. There's not one, like, you can make a bad video, you can make like bad audio or stuff like that. Like, there's clearly like, okay, this is trash, like, don't watch this, but it's much more artistic, right? So you don't get this like, hey, here's this exact playbook, here's exactly what to learn, where coding is much more structured. And, you know, maybe you're going to like UI and UX and CSS and it is more art based. But for the most part, it's like, I feel like you can clearly tell if someone is good at coding or not good in coding. And maybe we can debate on little pieces of like how we would refactor the code or something like that, because there's multiple ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like it's much easier to see where you fall short or see your flaws versus content creation. I'm just like, well, did it get views or not views? I guess I can measure by that, but even that is random at times. So I feel like that for me as well is a little bit harder jumping into the world of coding.
Interesting. Yeah. I feel like for me, when I look at other people's code, it usually throws me off more than I'm like, oh, I'm analyzing what you did versus what I did. I guess I do that to a sense, but I'm always like, I have no idea what you're doing, and it makes me feel like I'm stupid or you're stupid, and I'm not sure which one is correct.
Oh my god. Yes. Like those I don't know how many algorithms you've done on like Code Wars or HackerRank and stuff.
Yeah.
But it always shows you other people's solutions, which is cool because you can learn from them.
Yeah.
But I'll look at them and I'm like, I just don't even know what this means. Like, I just like the syntax is like 2 lines and mine was like 20 lines, and I'm like, it's the same code, but like crammed into 2 lines. I don't know how they did this. And I'm like trying to ask ChatGPT, like, explain, like, what does this arrow mean? What is this,
totally.
parentheses? Like, what is this function that they're running? It's like, holy cow, like, what?
It's always the little built-in functions that you learn over time.
Yeah.
And I think like kind of I don't know if this is a key takeaway, but it's something that I keep reminding myself is we're so new in this world that it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
Right. Like, it's all right if you don't know everything, or you learn something new, or let's say there's a function, like a built-in function that you can call that will make it 2 lines instead of 20, right? Like that's okay. And in 5 years, 10 years down the line, and you're still learning, then that's also okay because it's constantly evolving.
Oh yeah, we're always going to be learning. And,
Yeah.
and I think it is what you said earlier in the podcast too, of like that expectation, that marketing of the boot camp and stuff like that of, oh, come to us, we'll show you the ropes, and you'll land a job like shortly after. And if you think about it, you're like, okay, I've been coding 9 months, like since the beginning of the year, right? Like,
Yeah.
imagine trying to jump into, I don't know, like acting when you've just been acting for 9 months, or
Oh
you
yeah.
know, whatever industry, name whatever industry you want, and like, I've practiced graphic design for 9 months, and now I'm going to be this like professional illustrator. Like, 9 months is is nothing, right?
Yeah. Can babies even walk at 9 months?
I don't.
I have no
so.
idea.
They can turn over in their crib, apparently, according to our
Oh,
cousin,
that's true.
cousin,
But
whatever.
only to their left. They can't do the other way. Like we can only code one way. We can't code the other way. Like that's what we're learning.
Yeah. And I think the hard part though is what I've been doing recently is I feel like a lot of the advice is like, yeah, just keep working on your projects. I see people on LinkedIn all the time, like I'm working on this project, or I'm doing like 100-day coding challenge where I'm going to build a little project each and every day, which is cool. Like, I don't want to put them down. Like, it's probably great to practice those basics, and I could probably do that more. But I started to wonder this week and last week after applying and talking to more people in the industry is like, does that actually prepare you? And I think that's one of the places I have imposter syndrome is like, you tell me to build a project on my own, like I can figure it out eventually. But you tell me to jump into a team of 20 people that have been working on this code for 3 years or whatever. Like, I don't even know where to freaking start. So that's where I'm like, I'm looking even for like volunteer positions now just to like try to contribute to a larger project, because that's something that, like we do a group project at the end of boot camp with 3 people, but you're still starting from scratch, right? Like you still know all the code in theory.
Yeah.
So I think that's also the hard thing is like, how do you transition from like, I've done my solo projects to like, I can work in a code that's been developed for 3 years and try to figure it out and understand it.
I feel like that's also an important part for employers to understand too. And I've never jumped into a job yet, but I always feel like employers, from what I hear, is they just expect you to know it. And the large companies are going to be like, have more of an initiation process, but there's still that level that you're totally right. That's like trying to figure out, I lost my train of thought, so it's gone.
Train's out of the station. That's okay. I'm sure it would have been incredible. I'm sure all 5 podcast listeners are very disappointed right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. Sorry, five people.
Yeah, I think one of the posts on LinkedIn I saw, and I don't even remember who said it, so I'm not going to quote them probably because they wouldn't want to be quoted anyways, but I think it captured the heart of it so well. It was like, this person, I want to say maybe it had been like 6 months, 9 months, or maybe even a year since they graduated the boot camp, and they still hadn't found a job. And they just made this like kind of heartfelt rantish post on LinkedIn of like, I really need to prove this to myself that it wasn't a waste of, $15,000 and that a waste of time for my family. Like, I really need to land a job. And, I'm not there yet because I just graduated like 2 weeks ago, and, it's been like a month and a half for you or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, it does give you anxiety when you start to think about that. Like, I don't want to be that person that has to suffer through for a year. Like, even though like career services are like, yeah, probably gonna take 6 months to a year at this point. I'm like, man, I don't want to be there a month being like, I still haven't found a coding job after all the hard work, after having to pay this loan off. Like, it's this imposter syndrome, but also this just anxiety of like, man, like, am I going to make it? Is that kind of daunting question?
Yeah, and it brings up an interesting like topic of endurance, right? Like, how many how many coders are out there and how much endurance do they have to try and continue to find a job? Like, there's this it's like this. Oh my gosh, my brain is.
It's the heat.
I know we had to turn our ACs off.
I'm like, if anyone's watching the video version, like I'm starting to glisten because like I'm like in the attic and it's probably like 95, maybe 100 degrees right now.
No, my hands are like so clammy. I like go to touch my mouse and I'm like, oh.
This is how coding makes me feel. My hands are clammy. I'm sweating my brow thinking about that coding interview.
Oh my gosh. I know you've actually landed a coding interview.
I landed a sales interview for coding bootcamp. I don't think I'd call that like there was no.
Fair enough.
There wasn't even tech interview within it. So,
but does that bring imposter syndrome to you? Like you get an interview, but it's related mostly to your past experiences rather than what you're trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, it was like kind of cool that I got something at first because they offered me the job. I'm still like in talks. I'm probably not gonna do it at this point, just because I'd rather focus actually on coding. Basically, the position was like you run little coding workshops to get people interested and then sign up for the boot camp, yada yada. But yeah, it's just like I mean, might as well just jump in to talk about how applying for jobs has been so far. So it's been 2-3 weeks for me. It hasn't been that long, but I've probably thrown out 40, 50 applications, probably half of them are quick throwaway, whatever, an email came in or LinkedIn easy apply, whatever, just cause. Maybe like 10 to 20 of those, I'm actually writing a cover letter. I'm, looking and researching the company, things that like match my vision or something like that to try to make it look like I actually care, those types of things. And I think I'm at 5 rejections so far, about 40 of them that haven't responded at all. And some of the responses were very quick. They was just like, they looked at my resume and it was like, nope. And I got an email like the next day. It was just like, whoa, dang, like that quick. Like, oh wow.
Jeez.
It doesn't feel great.
We have a bet going on to see who can get the most rejections. I'm at 0.
You still have 0?
Dude, I've applied like probably 30, 40 places, not as many as you. I have not had a single email, call, text, nothing. But unlike Indeed or something, this is not whatever, but like you get those emails from Indeed who are like, oh, this employer was interested in your skill set from this job that you had in 2015. And I'm like, that's not freaking coding.
Not even close.
Like, let's see. I got 3 new emails. Let's see if I got.
You're gonna look right now if you got rejected.
It got rejected. My junk. Nope, nothing. Dang. See, man, you're winning. I think you have to buy me coffee. I forget what it was.
No, whoever gets the most rejections gets the coffee.
Okay, well then.
So you're gonna have to buy me coffee, baby.
We got 2 weeks.
But I mean, I think that's though like part of the reason why I'm like, okay, I'm still going to apply to places, but almost even after a couple of weeks, it feels like what I've done and what I have on my resume with the way the market isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And not in a way of like, oh, I'm quitting, I'm a failure, I'm going to give up and just stop, but more of like, okay, so what can I actually do moving forward? Because I'm still going to be applying, but it seems like, networking, like doing this podcast, actually contributing, even if it's just like volunteer contract work, it's like, in some ways it feels like I need real world experience instead of just like, I'm just going to keep hitting my head against the wall doing this exact same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
So it definitely gets, I'm surprised how discouraging it gets that fast. Like, I was actually in the boot camp, I'm like, yeah, I know it's going to be hard, but like my spirits are high. Like, I got this, blah, blah, blah. And like, even just a couple weeks, it's crazy how demoralizing it is to face rejections, even though I know, like, career services have told me, people have told me in the industry, like, you're going to have to apply a lot. Like, one guy I connected on LinkedIn is like, yeah, I sent out 600 applications before landing a job. I found out later that he had a bot submitting applications for him. So, it's kind of like, It's just like one of those
Kinda
shocking
smart.
numbers. But you know, even though I know those in the back of my head, it still doesn't take away that emotion. Like you still have to wrestle through that, you know?
Yeah. Well, it also is just like, it's so draining to like you were saying earlier, you just start spamming like applications because you're just like, I don't care anymore who I work for or what I do as long as it's coding. As long as I get paid, as long as I have a job.
Right.
It makes this like all these jobs they pop up and they're like, this is how amazing your company is. And I'm like, I don't care because I know you're not even going to look at my freaking resume.
Right.
So I'm just going to spam it because in the off chance that you do contact me,
Right.
then I'll look more into it. But it's like even with cover letters, like I had ChatGPT write me a couple cover letters just because I was like, I don't super care.
Yeah.
About
I tested
this.
that as well, and what I realized is that it uses the exact same phrasing from the one you sent me. So
Does it really?
I realized, we might need to tweak these because that's it's probably
People know.
recognizable.
Whatever. Whatever.
But yeah, it's definitely like once you start applying places, like you have that excitement, you're like, oh, where can I work? Is it like somewhere cool? Like, oh, like IGN or this like cool nonprofit or whatever it is. And then you're like, okay, I'm not hearing back from anyone. Okay, random healthcare place in California, remote job that's like $50,000 a year, even though like everyone talks about coding jobs start at like 80,000 or whatever. I'm like, screw it, I don't even care at this point, you know? And then on the application, it's like, why do you want to work here? I'm like, I don't. I just want some experience and I want money. I don't know how to say this in a way that it sounds good.
Why do you want to work here? Because you'll give me money. Like it's a service, right? Like, like yes, you want to love what you do, but you're performing a service for somebody. Yeah. A job is hey, you give me money and I'll give you my time, right? Like that's how that system works. And to try and make it be like we're family, we're connected, we're tight knit. It's like no, we're not. We're just here for an exchange of goods, you know?
Yeah. No, and at this point, I'd be happy getting a year experience basically anywhere, as long as I'm making enough money for my family to survive. Because I think it is definitely one of those things, like, that's what everyone's been telling me. It's like, you get a year experience anywhere, like, you have such a better chance because people are looking for that real world experience.
Oh, totally. And like right now we're in this, like, I'm thinking of Spore. Did you ever play Spore when it was a big thing?
I've seen clips and stuff like that, but I don't think I ever played it myself. No.
So like, it's only fun until you hit the space age, where then it turns into this weird RPG. Anyway, you create your own character. You like design this little tiny microscopic little floating bug, and it's just a worm, and you can put some spikes on it, some eyes or whatever. And you have to go around this like tadpole that's a microscopic tadpole, and you slowly like eat little guys, and then you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you realize as you're getting bigger, all of the little microscopic things that were like huge when you were running around, they're everywhere. There are thousands of them, and basically we're those little tiny microscopic guys are surrounded by thousands of them. And then we just have to slowly build up to where there's less bigger ones.
So we have to eat them? Is that what you do in sport? Is it like the little blob IO game or whatever? Like absorb them?
You'll absorb them. Exactly. It was the same. It's like the same idea. Anyway, it was.
Yeah. No, that's one of those things that I'm just like, give me a chance, That's like all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Just, please, just give me a chance.
Just go like with a sign outside of like Twitter or
outside of Twitter, yeah.
With like a sign like hire me, like, and then make a TikTok on it, like how many days until I get hired.
Oh my gosh! At that point, yeah, it's like, at that point, do they not hire you just for the like continual fame that you're getting from these posts, though?
That's true. There is a TikTok I watched a while back of like they were going to stand outside of the Twitter headquarters. It was Twitter at the time until Elon Musk hugs him. I don't know if you've ever seen this. No. It was kind of popular. And it was like 130 days or something. and he finally got his hug, and then like lost most of his followers because like the investment's not there anymore.
Right,
you know?
Right, yeah. Well, I don't know why you pick Elon Musk. Like, of all the people, that's not who I would choose
to hug. I know. Yeah, you really want to hug? Yeah, we don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
I still want to be hired by a tech company.
Yeah, fair enough. I will hug whoever hires me.
Oh gosh, because it's a family, right?
It's a oh my gosh. All right. Well, since I'm sweating like crazy, maybe we'll start to kind of wind down and wrap. This is a good intro episode here. But I'm curious, there's our last kind of little bit here. Any ways that you have found helpful in dealing with the imposter syndrome? Or is this something that you're like, I don't know, this is just happening and like we're talking about it on the podcast, but like I don't have any advice or tips for you guys.
It's all avoidance. It's all avoidance. No, I feel like for me, I keep having to remind myself that it's okay to be in the spot that I'm in. You know, like we've only been doing this for, less than 9 months, really, right?
Yeah.
And so we can barely roll on our side. Like we can't walk yet. And if we're going to compare ourselves to babies,
right?
You know, like and that's okay.
If we've learned this much in 9 months through the bootcamp and all, and continue that was kind of what I was thinking about when you were saying that. Like, if you continue that same drive and learning for another 9 months, like where are we going to be then?
Yeah, totally. No, that's a great point because it's so true. Like it's so easy to get stuck in the mirror looking at where you're at. And it's so hard to look forward because it's so intimidating. It's so scary. You know, LinkedIn is a terrifying place if you're not used to social media or promoting yourself, you know? Like, it's not a fun environment and it's easy just to say, I'm done. Anyway, I think that's my advice because I keep trying to tell myself that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And one, I guess, quick thought I just had about the imposter syndrome again is that I think part of it is like when you're in the boot camp, you're so structured, you're learning new things every day. You feel like you're growing so much, even though it's like painful growing because you're like, there's always those moments you're like, what the heck is going on? I feel off or behind or stupid. But then as soon as you graduate, you're like, I'm still kind of growing, I'm still kind of learning, but I don't feel that like same acceleration, that same motivation and drive and like that I'm learning all the time. It's like much bigger concepts that I'm trying to learn piece by piece, so I don't feel like I'm really growing at the same rate that I used to.
Yeah. No, totally. And I've slowed down my learning from when I was in school, you know? Like partly because I'm having to pick up more shifts and do more work to make more money so I can pay for the loan.
Right. Yeah.
So like there's that transition on top of it, but it's dude, it's tough out there. It's really tough.
Episode 1, coding sucks. Stay away. Maybe don't do it. But no, that's a good point though. Someone asked me, after I graduated, like, oh, so do you feel less busy or more busy now? And I was thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, I feel more busy because I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to do the algorithms. Like if you go and do all the things that career services tells us that we should be doing between algorithms, solo projects, finding, group projects to volunteer for, networking, applying for jobs, there's other things too. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but when you start adding all that up, you're like, the time I actually have to learn new code and stuff, like, is much less than when you're just in the boot camp and you're like, this is all I'm doing right now. And this is fine. Yeah. I'm in school. So this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I think for me,
sweating.
Yeah, I think for me, last little bit,
go for it.
Just talking to people, I think, and networking, like it's great that we have each other. I think it's going to be really fun to do this podcast and see, obviously, other people are going to have different perspectives and stories, but I think there's going to be a lot of commonality, talking to people that I've connected with on LinkedIn or other classmates in our Discord, stuff like that, and realizing, okay, I'm not alone in this. This is how pretty much, like, we're all commiserating together that we feel this way.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that also really helps to know, like, okay, it's not just a me thing. It's not like I suck or I have this problem. It's, this is just kind of how it's going to be. until we arrive. And even then, like once we get a job, it's probably going to be another like year or two until we probably feel comfortable.
Oh, totally.
At that, you know?
Yeah, we'll have the senior dev just like barking down our backs, like what are you doing?
Gosh, I really hope I don't have that.
You're so stupid.
Yep. All right. Well, to wrap up, this has been the first episode. Thank you guys so much. This is Coding Imposters. We're going to be doing other clips on, hopefully TikTok, Instagram. I don't know about Twitter. We'll see if there's a need for
X.
that. Yeah. Facebook Meta or whatever. I'm going to say YouTube and TikTok is probably going to be the main points first. Maybe if we actually get anyone listening, we'll do a Discord or somewhere to hang out. Who knows? But for now, just follow us along there. We'll be on all the podcast platforms. And of course, if you want to be on the show, we'll probably have guests from, I got some that I want to ask from our boot camp and then other people we've connected with. But if you're listening to this and heck, this podcast is exactly for beginners. So even if you're like, I've done this for a month and I want to come on and talk about my experience, great. That's awesome. Like we're open to having people on. So feel free to reach out to us as well. We'll put like an email in the description or all that boring link yada stuff. It'll be there.
Sweet. Awesome.
Cool. Well,
let's see you next time.
See you next time. Let's get a job by then.
Right. See you when I'm hired.
That might be a long time till episode 2.
Exactly.
Episode 1, August. Episode 2, 2020-24. We've arrived.
We were August 2030.
Oh my gosh. That would be that bad.
We don't know.
Okay. Well, I hope we encourage you and discourage you at the same time. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.